Hi, I'm Paul. A little bit ill today, which might explain my sniffling and my voice, so I do apologise for that. In this video, I want to talk about something that we talk about in non-duality, which we say you are not the doer. I just want to put a bit of an explanation to what that means, that you are not the doer. In the last video, which I did, which was titled "Where Do Thoughts Come From?" I just want to touch a little bit on that because I explained that thoughts are brain movement. So your brain is making new neurons, connecting neurons, vibrating and making movement. And thoughts are just a visible way of seeing what activity is happening in your brain. So if we was to say that thoughts came first and the brain reacted to your thoughts, then you'd have to ask, where do thoughts come from? I do think it's the other way around, though, that your brain is reacting to the environment, and that then is created into thoughts so that you can make a visible image or a verbal image or whatever of what's happening in the environment. So essentially, thoughts are a reaction to the brain, and the brain is a reaction to the environment. So I think Alan Watts describes this, you are not the doer, as you're like the child in the passenger seat of a car with a toy steering wheel. And when you turn the steering wheel, you think you're turning the car. And I think this is what this is really explaining, is you are not the thoughts. Because a lot of us seem to get confused and think that we are thoughts, and our thoughts make our choices. So I was speaking to somebody about this quite a while ago, actually, and they was trying to explain to me that even animals have thoughts. Suppose depends on what you kind of call as thoughts, I guess. But he was trying to say that if you had a goldfish bowl with some goldfish in, and you go to feed the goldfish at 4 o'clock every day, and the goldfish get used to the fact that you come in at 4 o'clock and they start to come to the top of the bowl to collect the food. So they get used to it. But what I'm saying here is that that's a reaction to the environment. So the goldfish bowl just naturally get used to it. We could also say this as, if I was to say to you as an experiment, I want you to raise your arm. And you can kind of say, well, I chose to raise my arm, or I chose not to raise my arm. It was my thoughts. I thought about it and then thought I'm going to raise my arm. But when you really look into it, your thoughts was probably thinking, should I raise my arm? What's coming next? Why is he asking me to do this? But as you're making them thoughts, your arm just raises up. And that was just a reaction to the environment. I mean, you can't argue against this and say, yeah, but I didn't raise my arm. Well, that's probably because you felt a little bit threatened. Maybe you thought, well, what's going to happen next? Or I'm embarrassed because I'm in a crowd of people. So therefore, the reaction to the environment stops you from lifting up your arm. Another way that I like to point out to this to people is, let's just say you sat down somewhere and you've got a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then you go to pick up the coffee and you take a sip, and then I say to you, why did you do that? Most people just jump to the conclusion of saying, well, I was thirsty. But when you really look back and think about it, did that thought process crop up in your head? Did you say, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm just going to go and reach for my coffee and take a sip? The chances are not. It was just an automatic response to the environment. The environment was, there was a cup of coffee there, and your reaction to that was to take a sip. So the point, what I'm trying to point out to here is that when we say we're not the doer, what we're trying to explain is you're not the thought. So you yourself aren't the thought. But a lot of people seem to think that their thoughts are choosing, their thoughts are them, their thoughts are making the action that's about to happen next. And if I go back to the beginning on this one, when I speak about thoughts are a response to brain movement, that would suggest that the brain reacts to the environment first, and then the thought is a painted picture of what just happened. Anyway, thanks for listening.